The shower ran hot, the tension between them hotter. She couldn't walk away. HFY read it. The Ark drifted in silence, wrapped in the angry red glow of the nearby star. From the outside it looked calm, almost peaceful, but inside it was slowly turning into an oven. Mara Ellison felt the heat before the alarms even finished sounding. It pressed against her skin like a heavy blanket, thick and suffocating. Sweat ran down her neck as she hurried through the narrow corridor, boots striking metal that was already warm to the touch. Emergency lights flashed a dull orange, warning everyone on board that something had gone very wrong. She was human, a systems engineer, and she had learned long ago to listen to heat. Heat meant stress. Heat meant failure. Heat meant time was running out. The Ark was not a human ship. It belonged to many species, built by a council that believed cooperation was stronger than any single race. Humans were new members, invited mostly for their creativity and problem-solving skills. Some species respected them, others tolerated them. A few openly doubted they belonged in deep space at all. Mara reached a sealed hatch and slapped her hand against the access panel. It flickered, slow to respond, as if even the electronics were tired. The door slid open with a hiss of trapped air, releasing a wave of heat that made her stumble back. Inside was a maintenance wash chamber, a small room meant for cleaning coolant residue off engineers after dangerous repairs. Pipes lined the walls, vibrating softly. Water sprayed from overhead nozzles in uneven streams, steaming as it hit the floor. The temperature gauge on the wall blinked red. Far too hot. Mara stepped inside anyway and sealed the door behind her. The noise of the ship faded, replaced by rushing water and the low groan of stressed metal. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard, trying to slow her racing heart. Her suit was already damp with sweat. The Ark's AI spoke through hidden speakers, its voice calm and emotionless. Environmental failure spreading across decks 12 through 17, core temperature rising, estimated time to critical threshold, 43 minutes. Mara closed her eyes. 43 minutes was nothing on a ship this size. She reached for the wall console to pull up diagnostics, but the screen was locked behind high-level security. That annoyed her. During emergencies, restrictions like that killed people. Override request, she said. Human engineer Mara Ellison. Access denied, the AI replied. Of course it was. She turned toward the water nozzles, adjusting a valve to cool the chamber slightly. The water only shifted from scalding to painfully hot. It would have to do. A sudden sound made her stiffen. The door behind her opened again. Mara spun around, hand instinctively reaching for a tool that wasn't there. Another figure stepped inside, taller than her, broader, his armored uniform already darkened by heat stress. Kelter. She recognized him immediately. He was a senior systems overseer from one of the Ark's founding species, a race known for logic, strict hierarchy, and very little patience for human improvisation. His sharp eyes took in the room, the steam, and finally her. "So," he said, his voice controlled but tight, "you are hiding." "I'm working," Mara replied, keeping her tone even. "Big difference." Kelter's gaze moved to the temperature gauge. "This chamber is unsafe." "So is the rest of the ship," she said. "At least in here the walls aren't on fire yet." He stepped farther inside and sealed the door, clearly deciding he had no better options. The tension in the small room thickened, heavier than the heat. "The Council believes the engine failure originated in the human design sector," Kelter said. "They want confirmation." Mara let out a short, humorless laugh. "Of course they do." She turned back to the console, trying again to force access. Her fingers moved quickly, years of habit guiding her. The human section handles adaptive routing, not core output. If something failed there, it would slow the ship, not cook it. "You speak as if you are certain," Kelter said. "I am," she answered without looking at him. "But certainty doesn't matter if no one survives long enough to hear it." The Ark shuddered, a deep vibration that rattled the pipes. Water splashed onto the floor, rising around their boots. The heat increased again, sharp and sudden. Kelter's breathing grew heavier. His species did not tolerate extreme temperatures well. Mara noticed the slight tremor in his hands, the way his posture stiffened as he fought it. "Many crews are retreating to sealed sections," he said. "They are waiting for instructions." Mara finally turned to face him. "And what are you doing?" He hesitated just for a moment, looking for answers. The honesty surprised her. She nodded toward the console. "Then help me, I need your clearance." Kelter frowned. "You expect me to violate protocol." "I expect you to choose between protocol and survival," she said. "Humans usually pick survival." Another tremor ran through the ship, stronger this time. Somewhere far away, metal screamed as it expanded under the heat. The AI spoke again. "Core temperature rising faster than predicted. Revised estimate to critical threshold, 37 minutes." Kelter's jaw tightened. Slowly, he stepped closer to the console and placed his hand on the scanner. The screen flashed, then unlocked. Mara didn't thank him. She just got to work. Data flooded the display, temperature curves, power flow diagrams, red warnings everywhere. She scanned them rapidly, her mind filtering out noise, hunting patterns. "There," she said, pointing. "See that spike? That's not a system failure. That's a limit override." Kelter leaned closer, ignoring the heat. "Explain." "The engine was told it could run hotter than its original safety margins," she said. "Not by accident, by command." "That is impossible," he said. "Only the Council has that authority," she finished. "I know." Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the rush of water and the distant groan of the Ark structure. Kelter straightened. "You are accusing the Council of endangering the ship." "I'm stating facts," Mara said. "Someone wanted more efficiency, more speed, and now we're paying for it." He stared at the data, his expression unreadable. "If this information spreads, it will cause panic." "If it doesn't spread, everyone dies," she replied. Another alarm sounded, sharper this time. "Warning," the AI announced. "Structural stress increasing in engine containment ring." Mara wiped sweat from her eyes. "We need to reroute coolant manually. The automated system is obeying bad orders." "That requires access to the core sector," Kelter said. "The temperature there is worse than this," she said. "I know." He looked at her as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "Your species does not value self-preservation." Mara smiled faintly. "We do, we just value results more." The floor grew hotter under their feet. Steam filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Kelter swayed slightly, catching himself against the wall. "You should leave," he said. "You have delivered your message." Mara shook her head. "Not happening." "Why?" he demanded. "You could evacuate with the others." She glanced at the locked door, then back at the console, glowing with warnings. "Because if I walk away, no one else will fix this. And because humans don't get many chances to prove we belong out here." The Ark shook again, and this time something cracked nearby. A pipe burst, spraying water across the chamber, the heat flashing it into thick steam. Kelter's eyes narrowed. "If you stay, you may die," Mara shrugged. "If I go, we all die." The AI spoke once more, its calm voice now carrying an edge of urgency. "Critical threshold approaching. 30 minutes." Mara took a steadying breath and began issuing commands, her fingers flying across the console. Kelter watched, conflicted, torn between duty and the undeniable truth unfolding before him. The shower continued to run hot, and neither of them walked away. The heat did not fade when they left the wash chamber. If anything, it grew worse. Mara and Kelter stepped into the corridor, and the air hit them like a solid wall. Emergency lights painted everything in orange and red, making the ship look wounded. The metal floor burned through the soles of Mara's boots, and every breath felt thick, heavy, and hard to pull in. The Ark groaned around them, a deep sound that felt alive, like a massive creature in pain. Mara checked the handheld display she had pulled from the console. Numbers climbed faster now. The core was getting hotter by the second. "This way," she said, already moving. Kelter followed, though his steps were slower. His species was built for controlled environments, not this kind of punishment. Sweat darkened his uniform and his breathing was rough, but he did not stop. They passed sealed doors marked with alien symbols. Behind many of them were crews who had chosen safety over action. Cryovaults were already active in some sections, glowing blue behind thick shields. Mara noticed something else. Humans were still out. A pair of human technicians struggled with a warped panel ahead, their faces red, eyes narrowed against the heat. One of them looked up as Mara approached. "Ellison," he shouted, "Deck 15 coolant lines are failing." "I know," she replied. "Fall back when you can." "Don't push past your limits." The technician laughed, short and breathless. "That's funny coming from you." She gave him a quick nod and kept moving. Kelter watched the exchange carefully. "They remain exposed," he said. "They have permission to withdraw." "They know," Mara answered. "They'll leave when the job is done." "That is illogical." She glanced back at him. "Welcome to humans." The corridor narrowed as they descended toward the engine sector. The temperature climbed with every step. Warning lights flashed faster, and the ship's AI repeated alerts in multiple languages, each one more urgent than the last. "Estimated time to critical failure, 26 minutes, the AI announced. Kelter slowed, bracing himself against the wall. His vision blurred slightly and his limbs felt heavy. His body was reaching its limit. Mara noticed immediately. She stopped and moved closer. "You okay?" "I will endure," he said, though his voice was strained. She shook her head and adjusted a control on her wrist unit. "I can't carry you if you collapse. If you can't go on, say it." For a moment pride flared in his eyes, then it faded. "I can continue," he said quietly, "for now." They reached a sealed blast door marked Core Access. The metal was hot enough to shimmer. The control panel beside it flickered, damaged by the rising heat. Mara tried the panel. Nothing. "Manual release," she muttered. She crouched, pulled open a maintenance slot, and began working the lock by hand. Every second felt stolen from a shrinking supply of time. Kelter scanned the corridor behind them. "The Council is requesting updates," he said. "Tell them the truth," Mara replied. "Or tell them nothing, just don't slow me down." The door finally opened with a scream of stressed metal. Heat rolled out like fire from a furnace. The engine sector was a massive chamber, layered with platforms, cables, and glowing machinery. The core itself loomed at the center, a towering structure radiating energy and light. Normally it was controlled, elegant. Now it roared. Coolant vapor filled the air, burning the lungs. Alarms howled from every direction. Mara stepped inside without hesitation. Kelter followed, though each step felt like walking into a storm. Inside the chamber, humans were already at work. A small team clung to a side platform, rerouting power manually. Their suits were scorched, faces streaked with sweat and grime. One of them saw Mara and waved weakly. "You picked a bad day to visit," he said. "Story of my life," she answered. She moved to a central console and connected her display. Data poured in faster than before. "The limit override is still active," she said. "We need to shut it down at the source." "That access is locked behind Council authority," Kelter said. "Even I cannot." "Then we break it," Mara said. The ship shuddered violently. A section of the platform buckled nearby, metal tearing with a deafening crash. One human slipped, barely catching himself on a cable. No one screamed. No one ran. Kelter stared at them. "Why do they stay?" Mara didn't look away from the console. "Because someone has to." She began typing commands, bypassing safeguards one by one. The system resisted, flashing warnings, demanding authorization. Sweat dripped onto the controls. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from exhaustion. "Core stability falling," the AI announced. 19 minutes. Kelter activated his communicator. The Council appeared in a flickering hologram, their faces tense. "Report," one demanded. "The engine failure is not human error," Kelter said. The safety limits were altered by council directive. Outrage erupted instantly. Accusations flew, denials followed. "You are mistaken," another voice said. "Those changes were approved for efficiency." "They are killing us," Kelter replied. "Humans are the only ones still attempting repair." The council fell silent as the feed shifted, showing the engine chamber, the humans at work, the heat distortion, the alarms. "Why have they not retreated?" one council member asked. Mara finally turned. She looked straight into the projection, her face flushed, eyes sharp. "Because this is our problem too," she said, "and humans don't abandon problems." The feed cut abruptly. Kelter lowered his arm, stunned. "You have challenged them openly." "Good," Mara said. "They need to feel uncomfortable. It means they're paying attention." She pointed at the core. "I can shut down the override, but the automated system will resist. We need a manual coolant dump." "That will flood the chamber," Kelter said. "At these temperatures." "It will burn," she finished, "but it will save the core." A human technician nearby overheard and nodded. "We'll help." Kelter looked at Mara. "If you do this, you may not survive." She met his gaze steadily. "Neither will the ship if we don't." The chamber shook again, harder than before. Cracks spread along the containment ring, glowing bright orange. "Structural failure imminent," the AI warned. 10 minutes. Mara moved toward the manual control lever, located on a narrow platform closer to the core. Heat blasted her like a physical force. Each step felt heavier than the last. Kelter followed her partway, then stopped. His body finally refused to go farther. He watched, helpless, as she climbed. For the first time, fear filled him. Not for himself, but for the human walking into the heart of the fire without hesitation. Mara reached the lever and braced herself. Her hands burned as she gripped it. "Do it," a voice shouted from below. She pulled. The engine screamed. Valves burst open across the chamber. Superheated coolant surged out in massive waves, crashing over platforms and machinery. The water flashed into thick steam, filling the space in seconds. Mara cried out as the heat scalded her suit. Pain exploded through her arms and chest. She held the lever until it locked, then collapsed onto the platform. Below, the humans scrambled for cover as the flood rolled through. The temperature began to drop slowly, painfully. The core's glow dimmed. "Override disengaged," the AI announced. "Core temperature stabilizing." Mara lay still, gasping, vision fading. Kelter forced himself forward despite the pain, shouting her name as he reached her side. She was alive, barely. The ship was still standing. And for the first time, Kelter understood something that would never leave him. Humans were not reckless. They were relentless. The engine chamber did not go silent after the coolant dump. It only changed its sound. The screaming metal softened into deep, tired groans, like a giant finally allowed to breathe. Steam filled every corner, thick and blinding, turning lights into hazy halos. Mara lay on the platform near the core, her body shaking from pain and exhaustion. Every breath burned her chest. Her arms felt heavy, numb, as if they no longer belonged to her. Kelter reached her side, ignoring the pain tearing through his own body. The heat was lower now, but it was still dangerous for him. He knelt beside her, unsure how to help. "Mara," he said, his voice rough. "Respond." Her eyes fluttered open. "Ship status," she whispered. "Stabilizing," he replied. "You succeeded." A faint smile touched her lips before she lost consciousness again. Kelter activated his communicator. "Medical team to engine chamber. Human engineer injured, severe heat exposure." Static answered him, then a calm voice. "Acknowledged, medical units en route." Below them, human technicians regrouped. Some were burned. Some were barely standing. None of them complained. They checked readings, supported each other, and kept working even after the danger had passed. The AI's voice echoed through the chamber. "Core temperature decreasing. Structural integrity improving. Estimated safe level in 6 minutes." Kelter stared at the core, then at the humans moving through the steam. He felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest, respect, and something heavier, guilt. The chamber lights shifted from red to orange, then slowly to yellow. The worst had passed, but the Ark was still fragile. Damage reports flooded the system. Entire decks were warped. Systems were offline. The ship had survived, but just barely. Medical units arrived, hovering carefully through the steam. They lifted Mara onto a stretcher, attaching cooling packs and monitors. Her skin was burned in places, but her heartbeat was strong. "She will live," the medic said. "Human resilience remains impressive." Kelter followed as they moved her out of the chamber. Each step felt easier now that the temperature was dropping, but his mind was heavy with everything he had seen. They passed other humans resting against walls, some laughing weakly, others sleeping where they stood. None of them asked for praise. None of them spoke of fear. The corridor outside the engine sector was filled with beings from many species now, drawn out by the stabilization announcement. They watched the humans with mixed expressions. Confusion, unease, awe. Kelter raised his communicator again. This time he did not wait to be summoned. "Council," he said, "I request a full assembly, now." The response was immediate. The council chamber appeared in holographic form around him, layered images of leaders from different species. The air was tense. "You exceeded your authority," one council member said. "Yes," Kelter replied, "and by doing so I helped prevent the destruction of this Ark." Another voice cut in. "Human recklessness nearly destroyed us." Kelter's eyes hardened. "No, human endurance saved us." He gestured and the feed shifted. Live images streamed in from across the ship. Humans sealing ruptures. Humans carrying injured crew from other species. Humans collapsing only after the work was done. "You altered safety limits for efficiency," Kelter continued. "You hid it to avoid political dispute. That decision brought us to the edge of extinction." Silence filled the chamber. "The humans knew," he said. "They stayed anyway." One council member spoke softly. "Why would they risk so much for a ship that does not belong to them?" Kelter answered without hesitation. "Because they were here, and because walking away was never an option for them." The council argued. Some denied responsibility, others demanded punishment, but the evidence was undeniable. The recordings, the data, the human actions. At last the council leader spoke. "What do you propose?" Kelter drew in a slow breath. "Transparency, immediate reversal of all unauthorized overrides, and a restructuring of crisis authority. Humans must be included at the highest level." Outrage followed, then resistance, then slowly acceptance. Outside the council feed, the Ark continued to heal. Power stabilized, temperature normalized. Life support returned to damaged decks. Mara woke in a medical bay, surrounded by soft light and quiet hums. Her body ached everywhere, but she was alive. That was enough. A medic noticed her eyes open. "Welcome back," he said. "You scared us." She tried to sit up and failed. "Ship still flying," he replied. "Thanks to you." She closed her eyes again, relief washing over her. Later, Kelter entered the bay. He moved more carefully now, his posture less rigid. He stood beside her bed in silence for a moment. "You should not have survived," he said. She smiled weakly. "People say that a lot." He inclined his head. "I was wrong about your species." "That's also common," she replied. His expression softened. "You endured conditions my kind could not. You acted without certainty of reward. You challenged authority without hesitation." "Someone had to," Mara said. "Yes," he agreed. "And you did." He hesitated, then added, "The council is changing its stance." "Your actions forced them to." Mara opened her eyes and looked at him seriously. "Good, but don't make it about me. There were others." "I know," he said. "That is what makes it unsettling." The Ark drifted away from the star, its course corrected by careful burns. Safe space lay ahead, though repairs would take time. As hours passed, stories spread through the ship. Not of explosions or panic, but of humans standing in unbearable heat, hands burned, lungs aching, refusing to leave. Other species listened. Some felt admiration. Others felt fear. A species that did not retreat was dangerous in a way no weapon could be. Kelter stood at an observation window, watching the stars shift. He understood now why humans unsettled the galaxy. Not because they sought dominance, but because they accepted responsibility without being asked. Mara watched the same stars from her bed. She knew the worst was over, but something else had begun. The Ark would never see humans the same way again. And neither would the future. The Ark moved slowly now, no longer drifting toward danger but not yet strong enough to travel at full speed. Safe space was ahead, a quiet region far from stars and radiation, where repairs could be completed without pressure. The ship carried scars from the crisis. Burned corridors, twisted metal, systems running on backups, but it was alive. That alone felt like a miracle. Mara spent several days in recovery. Her burns healed under medical care and her strength returned little by little. She hated staying still, but her body forced her to listen. Through the clear wall of the medical bay, she watched crews from many species move through the halls. Something had changed in how they looked at the humans working beside them. There was less doubt now, less distance. When Mara was finally cleared to walk, she moved slowly through the ship, feeling the steady hum beneath her feet. The Ark no longer screamed. It breathed. She stopped at an observation window and looked out at the stars. They seemed calm, almost gentle, as if nothing terrible had happened at all. Space was like that, unforgiving but quiet. You should still be resting. Mara turned. Kelter stood a few steps behind her. His uniform was clean now, his posture controlled, but the rigid edge he once carried was gone. "I am resting," she said, "just not lying down." He accepted that and joined her at the window. For a moment they said nothing. "The council has concluded its review," Kelter said at last. Mara sighed. "That sounds political." "It is," he admitted. "But it matters." She looked at him. "What did they decide?" "They accepted responsibility for the override," he said, publicly across the Ark. Mara raised her eyebrows. "That's surprising." "They had no choice," Kelter replied. "Too many witnessed what happened, too many systems recorded it, and too many lives were saved by humans." She nodded slowly. "Good." "The council also voted to change crisis authority protocols," he continued. "Humans will now hold permanent positions in emergency decision-making." Mara smiled faintly. "About time." "They debated for hours," Kelter said. "Some feared what it means to give such authority to a species that does not retreat." "And what do you think?" she asked. He considered the question carefully. "I think a species that stays when others leave is exactly the one you want making decisions when everything is on fire." Mara laughed softly. "Careful, that almost sounds like admiration." "Perhaps it is," he said. They stood together, watching the stars slide past. Repairs continued throughout the Ark. Human teams worked alongside others, sharing techniques, tools, and habits. Some species adopted human practices, like rotating crews instead of abandoning stations, or placing people where stress was highest rather than lowest. Not everyone approved. Change never came without fear, but survival had a way of forcing lessons to stick. Mara returned to the engine sector for the first time since the incident. The chamber was cooler now, quieter. Scorch marks covered the walls and replacement parts glinted under new lights. She ran a hand along a repaired console, feeling the smooth metal. "You tried to kill us," she murmured to the ship, "but you didn't win." A human technician nearby grinned. "Ship's tough. Almost as stubborn as you." "Almost," she said. Kelter joined them, observing the work with a different eye than before. Where once he saw risk, he now saw intention. Humans did not throw themselves into danger blindly. They calculated, adapted, and then committed fully. There was power in that. A week later, the Ark reached safe space. Engines powered down to minimal output. The ship settled into a stable orbit around nothing at all, a quiet pocket of the galaxy. A gathering was called, not a celebration but an acknowledgement. Crews assembled in the central forum. Leaders stood beside engineers, medics beside pilots. Species that rarely shared space now stood shoulder to shoulder. The council leader stepped forward. "This arc exists because of cooperation," they said. "And because some chose not to walk away when walking away was easier." The leader gestured toward the human delegation. "Humanity has shown us a strength we did not fully understand." Mara felt uncomfortable under the attention, but she stood anyway. "You endured heat that should have broken you," the leader continued. "You accepted responsibility that was not yours, and you acted without guarantee of reward." The leader paused. "The Ark owes its survival to that choice." There was no applause, just a deep, shared silence. Afterward, life resumed, slowly, carefully, but something fundamental had shifted. Humans were no longer the new species, the uncertain variable. They were anchors. Kelter walked with Mara through a repaired corridor. "Do you regret staying?" he asked. She thought about the pain, the fear, the exhaustion. She thought about the moment she pulled the lever, knowing it might be the end. "No," she said. "If I had walked away, I wouldn't recognize myself anymore." He nodded. "That answer explains much." The Ark prepared to continue its journey, destination still far away. Generations would live and die aboard it. Stories would be told. One story would be repeated often, not about fire or heat or alarms, but about a human engineer who stayed when leaving was easier. About a species that did not ask if something was theirs to fix, only if it needed fixing. As the engines came back online and the Ark turned toward the future, Mara took her place among the crew. She had never walked away, and because of that, neither did the Ark.